Hi guys, welcome back to Mike's Custom Weaponry. Today we are back at working on this Model 10. I got a new camera setup, so now you guys can actually see what's going on. I know it looks all blurry at the moment, but trust me, check this out. So cool. So I'm going to get this guy in the vise. Today we're going to continue on, and we're going to recut the factory logo. It's a nice little extra touch I like to add in is just recutting the factory logo. And you can see it there. I'll zoom out in just a sec. I just got to get it into place here. Okay, make sure she's centered. So, let's see. There's the factory logo, you can see. So we're just going to go ahead and recut this whole thing, okay? And what this does is it gives it a much nicer appearance. I gotta pull the cylinder release off here real quick. Give me just a second. She comes off. So, interesting thing about this new setup is you guys can see way better. But because my microscope wasn't really meant for this, I can only see with one eye. So I can only look through just with my right eye here. And so I have no depth perception whatsoever. So that's why we're going to do this as a little test video, just recutting the logo, because it's something I can do relatively quickly, but it's not, I don't have to see all that well, and if it's awful to do, then it's not too much work. Okay, so we're going to start. We're up. I've actually been really liking the higher RPMs lately, so around 5,000 RPMs. And there's our cutter, nice and sharp enough. And so I'm going to zoom in here. I just got to make sure both I can see and you can see. The focus is a little different. I got to focus up here this time so I can go. And it's not exactly the easiest thing to get perfect. So, alright. I say that looks pretty good right there. Yeah, we'll try that. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, you guys can see okay. So what we're doing is the factory logo on these isn't. I actually don't know how they're producing them. I know on the newer ones they're laser engraving some of them, and it looks okay, but it's not, anything special. I gotta angle this just right so I can see with one eye. I'm actually left eye dominant too, which makes this even harder. I should be looking through it like this, but that looks super weird. If I'm looking through it this way, well, maybe you guys can bear with me. So we're using a 1/16 graver for this. And I'm just cutting straight into this blued surface because this surface is pretty darn good. There's not really any major pitting on this surface. I keep everything in focus. The camera, I don't exactly know if I can change the zoom on the level of the zoom on the camera. Maybe I can do that real quick. Let's see. So zoom. No, I don't see zoom. Well, whatever. We'll play with this here. We'll see what happens. But you guys can see, yeah. So this camera is actually made for this microscope. But I think most of the time when people use cameras in a microscope, they're using just the camera. They're not actually using the microscope and the camera at the same time, which is something that I really want to do, because I can sit here and look at. I can probably engrave just by looking at the camera feed on my monitor, but man, that is weird. Not actually looking at exactly what I'm doing. I need to get a new... I found out you can actually get just the microscope head for these microscopes, and I found a new one that allows me to do both looking through it with both eyes and having the camera looking through it simultaneously. Make sure I'm staying centered here for you guys. And I need to get that on order. But I've got, it seems like such a crazy setup right now. I've got wires hanging everywhere to try and capture. This camera doesn't exactly play nice with my recording software. So I've had to make the one screen go full screen, and then I screen share that through my recording software. So I don't know how well this is going to come through, but I figured this would be a nice little test to see if the setup works and how nice it is. Yeah, I played with it a little bit over the weekend, but not enough to really, I didn't record any videos or anything, and that's why there wasn't a video on Friday, because I knew that this new camera was coming in, and I wanted to make sure that this next video had made use of this new camera, because, new technology is always awesome. As you can see, we're just making little cuts here. And I'll have to play with the white balance and all this extra stuff to get it to do, to be correct. But you can see, we got a little spot of rust right here. Is that rust? Oh, no, that's just dirt. Yeah. And we've got some weird auto-adjust features going on with the focus and the white balance and all that good stuff. I'm technologically illiterate sometimes, and I'll have to consult with my friends who know what they're doing when it comes to this sort of thing. So, but it's a good weekend. It was really hot out. Good weekend to stay inside and play with new tech. Some of these lines, when you're using a 1/16, some of these lines you have to fudge just a little bit. You have to move them just so that you get, because as you can see, the cuts that I'm making are significantly wider than the cuts that were there. And so you kind of have to space them such that you're splitting the difference. So you can see, I didn't want to break into that spot right there, but I didn't want to cut too close to this line either. So I had to kind of split the difference on those two. And as long as you stay consistent with you don't run into anything too much, it tends to look just right. I feel really dopey here because I only have one eye. I can only see so much, and so everything looks really flat, and I'm just like, where is my graver? Yeah, I'm not really cutting this in any particular order, just having at it to see how this works with the new video. You can also cut these with the 90-degree tool. I've done that before. And you get a little thinner line, and if you're trying to do some really fine details on things, the 90-degree graver will allow you to get those details. See, the larger the degree, the wider the cut, and so you end up with a thicker line for the same depth of cut. But the wider degree you get, the more area is, or the shallower each side is, so it tends to reflect more light back when you look at it. So if you can stand it, you want to cut with a larger angle tool, it can be a lot harder to get the consistency even, at least for me. But it does look nice. And I really like the 116. I've tried up to a 123, and that's a little too much for my taste. It's kind of like the what is it, the like new Western style stuff that's like real flashy. That they'll do stuff like that, and they'll do all the flowers and such that way. And you know, if that's what you're into, go for it. It's just not my flavor. I really like the 90 and the 116. And I've been told that I need to try a 105, but I just haven't gotten around to getting those templates and giving that a try yet. I really do need to at some point. That'll come after a new microscope, or a new microscope head at the very least. You can see, I'll zoom out here. I gotta get focus again. And just to give you guys an idea of size that we're dealing with here, this is a penny. So you can see the size that we're cutting these lines, how small we can get here. And this is a wide line. 1/16 produces a wide line in my book. So if we wanted to get really detailed, we'd go down to like a 90 or a 70, something along those lines. To refocus here. My zoom doesn't stay focused, and also the camera doesn't zoom. Like the view that I see is a whole lot larger than what you guys are seeing. But it's kind of nice because you can see a little bit more detailed. I don't have to worry about it so much. Still plenty to figure out. I figure each video I'll try and fix one thing, and then eventually it'll just be these nice videos after it's all said and done. And some of these lines are going to tend to overlap a little bit just because you are going wider with a 1/16 as opposed to a 90. But that's okay. So like that line right there, you can see that those two lines overlapped a little bit, but I gotta focus here a little bit. But I think it still looks okay, especially if you zoom out and you can kind of see what it looks like. I get some autofocus on here. There. What's really cool is just resetting these logos in something like gold or silver, or even gold and silver. One thing I've always wanted to do is take the S in this and set the S in gold and the W in silver, and then the ampersand in copper or something, or maybe maybe just gold and silver, maybe just gold. But I have done just gold, and it just on a blue background, it just really pops. It looks beautiful. Not to toot my own horn there, but you know. Yeah, I'm starting to get used to this whole single eye thing. It's not too terrible to deal with. I feel like I'm definitely a little clumsier with it, but it's not terrible to deal with. One thing I've noticed, or people have told me, is I need to talk louder. It's something I keep forgetting to do. I think I'm a pretty soft-spoken person normally, but the graver kind of overpowers my voice. And it's not like I can hit mute on the graver. I'm having to make, see, like this particular instance here, this particular cut, I can't see it, right here. So you've got this cut here that I can't go any further this direction. So I can't start here because there is the recoil shield right there, and I keep bumping into that. So this is one of those things, one of those odd places where you have to make, sometimes you have to do 2 cuts in order to finish a line, or if you start at the opposite end of the line, like right here, sometimes you can get the whole way around depending on where that recoil shield falls or where that protrusion falls. Because these are guns, not jewelry. You know, things poke off of them, and you can't really, sometimes you can't really take things apart. Here, I'll zoom out a little. Yeah, you guys can kind of get where I'm going with here, and it leaves a nice, cleaner line than the original etched. I actually don't know how they're doing the original markings, but this is something that always adds just a tremendous amount of flair, and it doesn't take all. You can see I'm about halfway done at this point, but it really adds a tremendous amount of extra detail. Like it takes that extra level of detail, and it's not really all that tough to do. It's kind of tough right now because I'm only looking at it with one eye, but otherwise it's normally not too awful. And the hard parts are just keeping this nice straight lines. And if you can help it, you kind of want to cut the straight lines at the same time. That way things don't converge that aren't supposed to, and they don't widen if they're not supposed to. Again, if you can help it. Sometimes you can't help but have to move the graver's ball, but like there. So I cut one and then immediately jumped over and cut the other. Cut this one, then immediately jumped over and grabbed that one. Just to see if I can, see if it's gives you that little extra ability to keep it straight and even. And it doesn't always work, but this is, engraving is kind of one of those where you try something and you see if it works. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. It's just, as long as the end product looks good, that's all that matters. We've got just a couple things. And these, I do like to go back and cut the lettering on these too. I'll show you. Sometimes you can get away with doing 90s for just the letters. And we'll see. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it with the 120. This is kind of, might be a little tough with the 120 just because these letters are kind of small. I'm not sure. You guys will have to let me know if you want the light value pumped up at all, or any feedback you guys can provide. It makes it a little easier for me. I don't know how hard it is to see all this stuff. I don't know how hard it is for me to convey this stuff. Or maybe you're not into engraving, you're just watching it for the fun of it. That's cool too. Just listening to me ramble on while I do my work. We've got to finish off the S here. These long cuts are so hard because you have to readjust. And when you stop, to move your hand, you move your left hand. I'm right-handed, so you move your left hand turns the vise, and your right hand holds the cutter, the graver. And you don't want to try and, I can't really show you guys too well. Maybe I can. So you really want to make your cut So here, I'll make this cut here, and you guys can watch. So you want to turn just as far as your left hand can do comfortably, and then readjust your left hand, and continue cutting. And when you stop, you want to stop both hands at the same time. And then you can take your hand, but you want to make sure not to move your cutter hand at all. You don't want to twist it or turn it or tilt it, because as you start again, you would see a little stop-start mark. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of learn that control. And then you can go back in. You can see, this might be a little easier for you guys to see my left hand too. I must need 3 video cameras here. That way you guys can see me, my left hand, and the graver. Oop. And here we go. We got to do that center section again. I don't know if you guys like watching me better or you like watching my hands better. I don't know if I can zoom out far enough so you can see both. I might just readjust this guy real quick. Make it a little easier for you guys to see. Let's see. Reposition some pins here. Kind of hard to get these things lined up sometimes. It's a lot of eyeballing and figuring out. Yeah, there we go. That doesn't look too bad. You guys can see maybe a little better. And what I'm going to have to do is go back and remove all the bluing on this guy. And anywhere it needs to be repolished. There's a couple little scratches you can see, some little things in here. And a lot of that's going to get covered up by engraving, because we're going to, by the end of this gun, we're going to pretty much completely cover it. I figure this will be just a nice project that I can keep going with the channel. And, it'll be start to finish-ish. I'll do some things like, grips and polishing, because nobody wants to sit here and spend 3 hours watching me sand metal, or polish steel. It's kind of boring, to be honest, and I would probably run out of things to talk about, frankly. So I'll do the interesting things like cutting and engraving and showing you guys how the grips fit, or that I've got the grips sitting right here. And you can see actually half of this logo is going to be covered by the grips right there. Zoom out. But it's still worth recutting the whole thing, just because, say, somewhere down the line, somebody decides to change the grips on this gun. And it's nice to have, when they do change those grips, then they don't have to worry about, only half of the lettering has been cut, or half the engraving's been cut. Get that back in focus. Okay, I gotta mess with the camera here. There we go. It'll take me a while to get this all set up to the point where it just works flawlessly, and I stop talking about how bad the camera is and all that, but until then I'm open to suggestions on how to make things better. What do you guys want to see? If you don't mind looking at me, or if you want to see what my left hand's doing while I'm working. The hard part about these big long cuts is that chip. You can see it rolling up, and it kind of blocks the view of where you're going. And So what you can do is you can angle your engraver off to one side or the other, just the slightest bit, and it'll tend to give that chip a little bit of a curl in one direction or the other. Of course, as it curls more and more, it'll start catching on the surface, and then it kind of does what it wants anyway. But it kind of alleviates you having to stop and break the chip off and then continue. And I'm not talking much, I'm talking very subtly. Like right now it's coming basically straight up. If we cut it off to the side just a little bit, you can see it starts to curl in toward the center of the cut, center of the circle, I guess. And that's about as far as we can go there. You always want to stop before you actually make contact with the protrusion, and in this case the recoil shield, because if you make contact with something while you're engraving, it's going to tend to change your cut. I'm going to have to attack this from the other side here. That stop-start mark, it's almost inevitable that you'll get those to some degree, but you can kind of go back and hide them and blend them a little bit. So you can see right there, there's a stop-start. I don't know if I can fix this or not. I only have one eye right now. It doesn't look too bad. Kind of lose track of where it was. I can still see it, but again, we're working at this scale. This is, again, this is a penny. You can see that little mark is about the size of the L in Liberty on a penny, so it's not too bad. And if you look at it by eye, you can't see it. And that's the goal, is you're not trying to get something that you look at under microscope and it's perfect. If you can, then absolutely, go for it. But the goal is, what is it? I think it's either 3 or 4 times magnification is what they use to sort of look at engraving and judge its quality. And I don't actually know what magnification we're at the moment. I'm not sure. I know you guys are magnified a whole lot more than I am. So right now, you guys can see we can't fit the entire logo on your screen, but the logo on mine takes up about probably about half. So you guys are seeing probably, I don't know, maybe 3 times what I'm seeing as far as size goes. Yeah, that's about right. Something like that. And it's kind of hard I gotta get that figured out too. You guys are zoomed in way more than I am. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to cut the lettering on here or not with only seeing one eye, but we can give it a try. Might have to zoom way in to do it, but we'll see what happens. So then all we have left is the lettering, and it cuts pretty quick. It's not too bad to do. Now let's see. See if we can do some of this lettering. Yeah, we might switch over to the 90 just to give us a little extra chance here. And generally I like to cut, when I'm cutting lettering, I like to cut from top to bottom when I'm doing the straight lines. Oh, and that's totally upside down for you guys, but let's see here. This is about where I would want it. Let's see. I like to cut these straight lines first. Oh man, this is gonna be hard. might end up looking awful. having to keep glancing to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing here. I got the M cut, and normally you want to go through, or at least the way I do it is I'll go through and do all the vertical lines first, and then go back and do all the horizontal lines. And on normal lettering, straight lettering, it kind of helps keep all your verticals going the same way and all of your horizontals going the same way. And if you end up having a bunch of angles that are going in the same direction, cut those the same way too. And it's kind of weird to go, from not finish a letter and then move on to the next, but it keeps all of the lines running parallel to each other, running as parallel as they can be. So you wouldn't want to, you would cut your K, move on to your R, cut your R, and then cut the vertical in your R, and then move on to the M and cut the M. These are curved letters. They're running on the perimeter of a circle, so it's not as imperative to do it that way. It still helps. You can still kind of center your axis point on the center of the circle, and then as you turn, you can keep a parallel parallel line to the rest of it. But it's not as imperative with this, but it still helps a little bit. But I'm cheating a little bit because this is hard to see. And that S's for me are always just something that's obnoxious to cut. I hate doing them. I can never get them to look perfect. And unfortunately, there's like cutting a Smith & Wesson, there's a bunch of S's in there, and I just hate it every time I have to do it. I don't hate cutting it, I hate the S's. If anybody's out there starting your own company on building firearms or something that somebody plans to engrave, S's suck. Don't name your company anything that has to do with an S. Go, and then we're back up to the trademark. We got the mark there. We'll go back and do the Reg US Patent Office at some point. You may have to readjust here. And when you're cutting these letters, you can go back and back cut. So like I cut from here down to there, and then you can always go back and spin the whole vise around and then recut that section coming up. And something like an I or an L, you might want to do that. For this instance, and that gets rid of the little lead up, the little lead in that you have, and it's called back cutting your letters, and it just helps them look a little bit more professional, a little bit more square. Lettering's tough though, it really is. It takes a while to get good enough to produce letters that look decent, and the problem is that your eye can immediately pick up if a T or an I is slightly italicized or something. Like a curve isn't as bad because what's to say this curve was supposed to be a little less or a little more. Did we break the tip? You can see how I cut my tips there. We did not break the tip. I thought I felt it. Go. Almost need a little bit more light for you guys. It looks like it's getting a little dark. Oh, it's got auto dim here, so I'm not actually adding any more light. But the glare's a little better. I feel like you guys are just a little too zoomed in, but we'll fix that with the next video. Bear with me. That's why I make awful videos. So I was looking into, originally what I wanted to do was set up a Patreon with for this particular gun and have, do kind of a raffle sort of thing where it's once it's finished, it just gets auctioned off, or not auctioned off, but it gets everybody, everybody who donated a dollar or something, it all gets put into a hat, and I draw a name, and somebody gets the gun for $1. But apparently, places like Patreon don't like that. They specifically exempt or prevent it from happening. So I still have to figure out what I'm going to do. They said you can do it as like a competition sort of thing where everybody puts in $1 and then, there's like a drawing contest where, I don't know, you have to draw the best cat. And that person gets chosen by either the community or me, and then the gun is given to them. That's fine, apparently. But I was kind of looking for something that stuck everybody on equal playing field. That, and I would have no idea what to do for a competition. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll end up just going up on Gunbroker, Penny No Reserve. I mean, that's what I've been doing with, I've got a couple of guns like this. Like, guns that I've either bought in or had somebody trade toward work or something along those lines, and I'll just engrave them, refinish them, fix any mechanical issues, and then stick them up on Gunbroker, Penny No Reserve, and let them go for what comes, I don't know if we can readjust this here. Let's see. I'd like to get it sitting just a little higher. That way I don't have to readjust so much for you guys to see what's going on. I don't know if it's going to happen. Try. Might get it just a little higher. Oh, why did it go blue? Oh, because never mind. Oh, we are way off center there. Bear with me. Sometimes it'll take me 15-20 minutes just to get things situated to the point where I can actually start to engrave them. I've had to make up special jigs for holding, particular items. They're just very oddly shaped for some reason. See if I can do this zooming out a little bit better. Yeah, we'll try that. See what happens there. I should probably flip that video so you guys can see, so you're not staring at things upside down. How do I do that? Yeah, whatever. It'll be fine. Trust me, it's right side up on the gun. See, now this, I am going to stick to doing my method where I do all the verticals first, just because it's a little easier. U's are always kind of a pain because, yes, they're vertical, but they curve around. So I would prefer making that over one cut as opposed to making it a couple cuts and have the possibility of stop-start marks in there. I would prefer it be slightly off as far as being parallel to the rest of the lines. And in exchange, you make sure that it's all done in one cut. Or, no, we might get it in one cut with this. Let's try. Again, I'm kind of working with one hand tied behind my back here, because I can only see with one eye. Yeah, it's not bad. I will go back and back cut this side. Yeah, you can see. That's not terrible. Turned out okay. That S is going to be fun, though. OS's. I hate them. I hate them so much. Here, I'll show you why I hate them so much, because this is going to be... You guys are, like, barely going to be able to see this. Like, once you get in a groove with turn in that corner, it changes. You have to turn back the other way. It's just a lot of stopping and starting. It's not terrible. Yeah, it's not terrible. Again, the size that we're dealing with here. Just because I think this is such a neat little thing. That's the size that we're dealing with. We're cutting. You can see I got a little wonky there, but we're cutting about. If you want to look at something that you have on hand and see how small we're working, about the number stamp on a penny is about what we're cutting right now. So we'll jump back in here. We got a couple more letters to do. I think we're probably going to stop just at this logo today. I think it might be all I can handle doing one-eyed, especially with my non-dominant eye. I'm left-eye dominant, which is awful because I'm right-handed. So I have to shoot rifles left-handed, and I can kind of shoot them both, but I'm a terrible shot with a handgun. It's official now. It's on YouTube. Everybody knows it. Gee. Really, because we're not centered here, and I can't really get the thing centered at the moment. Kind of makes it hard because I've got to adjust the whole gravers. But I'll show you guys what I'm doing here. You can kind of see what's going on. I'm trying to balance my camera so it doesn't fall off. So, normally we can just spin like that, but for doing lettering like this, like we're gonna cut this G, I'm having to cut a little bit, spin it a little bit, readjust, re-angle, and that's mainly just because I don't have this particular letter centered in the vise. And ideally it's nice to have it centered. I'm having to work because the zoom is off between the camera and the zoom is different between the camera and the eyepiece. I'm having to try my best to keep it centered so that you guys can see it, but it's just kind of tough. It's not easy to do. So like these little circles, I can see a whole lot more, and I think the difference is it might be built into the camera because so my scope, when I look in there, I see a circular image, but when you guys look, you see a square image. So there has to be some change that they can't add on. So it's basically like the rectangle fit into the circle. Get me back in view there. The rectangle of the camera has to fit within the circle of the lens. And so naturally you guys see a little bit more zoomed in than I, and you can't see, there's some sections of my view that you guys won't see, it's cut off. I'll have to mess around with settings and see if I can figure out how to change that, if that's even possible. It might just be built into the camera. To which point I will just have to work harder at making sure everything is centered in the vise. But for now, it'll be okay. I really wish this this camera, this microscope was selectable, which eyepiece you turned off, because I would love to be able to see with my left eye instead. Right here, this is a neat little opportunity. So sometimes you don't break the burr off. And I don't know if you guys can see. See right there. It's a little burr, and you can see I'm pointing to it right here. I don't know if I can focus any better than that. Let's see if I can get. Yeah, you can see the burr. And when you rub your hand over it, you feel this little thing catching on you. And so it's always good to go back. That wasn't it. That was just a piece of cut. And trim that little burr. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, yep, right there on the tip of the graver. It's a little burr. It's always good because it's always good to cut those off because you want to be able to rub your finger over it and not feel, not get cut by a nice sharp little burr or something. I've been cut many times by a burr that didn't fully break off. It's not like this giant gouge, just this nice little paper cutting into your finger or something. It's always good to go back and cut the little dots if you can. And then I just have this O left to do. And ovals are notoriously a pain in the butt for engravers. Circles just make sense, but ovals can be a huge, huge pain to get correct. Thought I broke the graver there. I was like, you're kidding me. It's the last possible moment. And there we go. That's it. You can see, I'll pull her out of the vise so you guys can see what's going on. You see, I can make myself bigger, right? I can make this camera bigger. Let's see. Nope. Wrong thing. Bear with me while I ruin everything. There we go. So I'll pull this guy out of the vise for you. You guys can see. That's what we did. She'll focus. What do? They do this? It focuses? No. Of course not. But yeah, that was how do I hide this? this is super professional, guys. That's not it. There. We can hide that. Okay. I know what I'm doing. I swear I know what I'm doing. But thank you guys for tuning in. Next time, what we'll do is we'll do a little bit more on the side plate, and we'll just see how it goes from there. I'll have the grips finished by then, and maybe I'll have some more of the cylinder cut, just off camera, because that's kind of boring if I'm just doing the same thing over and over. But maybe you guys will enjoy that, seeing one or two of those, one or two more flutes of that. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you in the next video.